Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, what is Open Mic? Well, I'm glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we save the first part of the show to take all the main topics, but then in the second half of the show, we just take your live questions. And here on the weekends, that's all we do is take the live questions. And I'm so glad you're joining me here today. I hope you guys are having a great start to your weekend. I was in bed until noon. Yes, I was in bed till noon. I finally went to go see Tenet. So I finally got out to see Tenet last night. Unfortunately, because I wanted to see it in a Dolby Prime theater, and the 7 p.m. screening was already sold out when I bought my tickets a few days ago, so I got the 10:30 p.m. showing. 20 minutes of commercials and previews. Movie started at 11. It was in Anaheim. I had to get back. I quickly uploaded my quick out of the theater thoughts on Tenet, and I didn't get to bed till like 4 a.m. So I slept in a lot today. I've only been awake for like an hour or so. But anyway, I hope you guys are having a great start to your weekend. Hey, listen, before we get into our live questions, and by the way, you can send in a live question for the show here simply by using the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video, or you can just enter it manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason, and you'll be supporting the show at the same time. But before we get into that, I thought I should take a minute and talk about Tenet, because I gave my quick out of the theater review last night. And basically, the only thing I really said in my quick out of the theater initial reaction was, yeah, everybody was right. There's a lot of dialogue in this movie that I had no idea what they were saying. Now, it should also be pointed, what I didn't know going into the movie was there are scenes in the movie where I think it's fairly clear that Christopher Nolan doesn't want us to understand some of the dialogue. Now, without giving any spoilers away, but saying it in a way that people who've seen the movie will know what I'm talking about. You know, for instance, there's some scenes, well, you see in the trailer, there's a thing of glass and there's people on both sides of the glass. There are moments when I think there are people talking to each other on opposite sides of the glass that you're not supposed to be able to fully understand what the other person is saying for dramatic effect for something that comes later. I think it's very clear there were some moments in Tenet where it was purposefully done for the sake of the story that we not understand what some of the dialogue is. And I didn't realize that until when I watched it. I was like, oh yeah, I don't think we're supposed to know what they're saying here. That said, there's still a good chunk of the movie throughout where we are supposed to be able to understand what it is they're saying. And I just couldn't. I mean, there was even a couple of times I would turn to my buddy Soul, who was with me, and said, do you understand what they just said? And he's like, nah, I don't know. And here's the thing. When you have a movie that's as complex and has as many moving pieces as Tenet does, it becomes very important that we be able to follow along with the story, especially the parts that the filmmaker wants us to know, i.e. the dialogue between the characters. We got to be able to hear it properly. It was also obnoxiously loud. Like, I heard some people complaining about how loud the movie is, and I'm like, come on. I mean, it's loud. Okay, it's loud, but come on, you get the big theater experience loud. Woo! Now I know what you guys are talking about. There are scenes in there that it was like uncomfortably loud, but whatever. I think that might depend on from theater to theater. I will say this though. The movie, much like Interstellar, is bombastically ambitious. I mean, that's Christopher Nolan, man. Christopher Nolan is not afraid to just swing for the fences in telling his stories and stuff like that. And he really, it's bombastically ambitious, this movie. It incredibly is. And it has a lot of deep thoughts moments. You got to follow along so carefully. It is gorgeously shot. It is a beautiful movie. The performances I thought were great. The characters were quite great. It's a little bit, for those of you who've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. I think another name for Tenet could have been Bill and Ted 4. Bill, let's leave the keys. Let's remember to leave the keys under the trash can for our past selves. Anyway, basically Tenet is Bill and Ted 4. A better version of Bill and Ted, granted, but it's a little bit of Bill and Ted 4. Listen, it's a good movie. It's beautifully put together, but I couldn't help but feel a bit frustrated. Here's the thing. Because you could tell there is an amazing movie in front of me. Knowing that it's amazing, but you can't quite connect to it because there are so many different places throughout the movie where dialogue was being spoken that we were supposed to understand, and I just couldn't. I mean, a lot of it was fine. But because I couldn't just understand, I didn't actually know what was going on because I didn't hear the thing I was supposed to hear. And that just makes it really frustrating because you can tell that there's an incredible movie in front of me, but it's not bringing me along with it because it's in some technical issues. They're not allowing me to connect. And so that was pretty frustrating. And now I know what so many people were talking about when they said, yeah, you kind of got to see it twice. I'm like, nah, man, if you got to see a movie twice, that's the filmmaker's fault. And it still is. But now I totally know what you guys were talking about when so many of you guys are saying it's really a movie you have to see twice. I do plan on seeing it again. So we'll see. Anyways, that was my kind of experience with Tenet, a gorgeous movie, an ambitious movie. You expect nothing less from a filmmaker like Christopher Nolan. But as has happened in a couple of his films before, technical issues like audio mixing and just clear dialogue kind of get in the way a little bit, and it can make it a little bit of a frustrating experience. Anyway, I'd be curious to know what your guys' experience was with Tenet. So do let me know, would you? And leave it in the comment section below. And once Rob has a chance to see it, I'm sure he and I will probably talk about it on the show as well. Okay, guys, with all that down out of the way, let's get over to your live questions. Now, on yesterday's John Campea Show, something funny happened with my mixing board where all of a sudden all my shots started going crazy and the audio went out. So the last question we did from yesterday didn't have the audio, and I didn't have the things set up here. Here we go. So we didn't have the audio set up and in place properly for the final question of the day. So that was Cradley Booper. So let's start off by covering Cradley Booper's thing again. Let's see. Cradley writes, when you know you're doing a trilogy of films, isn't it cheaper overall and easier to secure actors by filming them all together? Why do films like Lord of the Rings do this, and why didn't Star Wars? So yes, I made a video not long ago about all of the benefits from if you know you're doing 2 films or 3 films, all the benefits of shooting it all at the same time, shooting them all back to back. There are logistical benefits. There are financial benefits. There's efficiency benefits. There are so many benefits to just gathering up and shooting it all at once. However, shooting them all at once is also an inherent risk because you're putting a lot of money on the line. And what happens if the first film flops? Well, now we've already spent the extra $500 million to make the other 2 films. It's a risk. And I point people to that dragon movie based on the series of books, Aragon. Remember that? That was going to be a trilogy. There was the full intention of the studio to make Aragon into a trilogy just like the books. I never read the books, but I knew what they were about. Well, what happened? Aragon was terrible and it flopped. So that's a situation where, it's a good thing they didn't shoot all 3 back to back because they would have lost the house. They would have gone broke. However, when you know it's not that much of a risk, like the Lord of the Rings one was a huge risk. I mean, that is one of the most ballsy moves in recent cinematic history, was them going all in on Lord of the Rings. Because guess what? You and I can play Monday morning quarterback right now and look back at that Lord of the Rings situation. Go, oh, of course it was Lord of the Rings. Of course it was going to do so well. It was a huge risk at the time. Nobody knew if that was going to translate well to the big screen. Nobody knew if that was going to work. It was a huge risk. And they kind of committed to doing all 3 films all right at once. Anyway, but there are some films that it is less of a risk, right? Because you already had a proof of concept. Pirates of the Caribbean shot a couple of movies back to back because they already knew that Pirates of the Caribbean was a huge popular hit. once again, Lord of the Rings, they did that. Matrix shot a couple of films back to back because they already knew the first one was a huge beloved classic. So they went ahead and shot Matrix 2 and 3 back to back simultaneously. So there are a lot of times when it's not a good idea, even though there's a lot of benefits, it's too big of a risk to shoot them all at the same time. But some where it's a very reasonable risk. I would contend that, Cradley, you are right. Star Wars should have been one of those situations. There's no risk. I mean, every film is a risk, yes, but I mean, it is a much mitigated risk to shoot a Star Wars trilogy all at the same time. You know you're going to make all three. If they had shot all three simultaneously, then what would have happened was it would have forced them to have all three films properly planned out. It would have been way more efficient. It would have saved them a lot of money. And if they want to still put it out every other year, they can, but it would have given them the option to release one a year if they wanted to. I'm just saying, there would have been a lot of benefits with a mitigated sense of risk. Star Wars was probably one they should have done that on. But anyway, that's there you go, Cradley. That's why some do it and some don't. Okay, next up. Kathleen Kennedy writes, I'm sure you've heard rumors about Mandalorian Season 2. Variety article also pretty much confirmed it. Mando himself will not be the focus halfway through Season 2. Do you think Pedro Pascal quit? Or that... No, I don't think Pedro Pascal quit. You don't quit halfway through a show. No. Listen, we talked about this the other day. John Favreau had already confirmed that they're going to take kind of a Game of Thrones approach with Mandalorian, where, you know, in Game of Thrones, you had several stories going on at the same time. You know, like while over here you had, Cersei doing something and you follow what's going on with her. And then you run over here to Jon Snow and you're following what he's doing over here. And then you go over to, whoever else doing their thing. So they're following different stories. I think that's simply the case here, is that they're saying that in Mandalorian Season 2, we're going to be following different storylines at the same time. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that, because that's a little bit of a departure what they've done from Season 1. But no, Pedro Pascal did not quit. And if he did quit, that wouldn't change anything. That wouldn't change anything at all. All right, anyway. Casey McNatt writes, hey, John, how are you today? I'm still a little tired. I'm not going to lie. I'm still a little tired from a very, very late night, but I'm doing well. Just want to know your thoughts of Neve Campbell finally signing on to replay her role of Sidney Prescott in the new Scream 5. We knew it was only a matter of time. Now it's time to speculate whether the main three will live or die. Listen, I'm going to say something very unpopular here, Casey. I don't care. I'm not a Scream guy. I'm simply not a Scream guy at all. I like the first Scream movie. I do. But there are a lot of people like Rob, for example, that consider Scream like as much of a horror classic as Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. Hey, it's all subjective. I mean, there are a lot of people who just love it on that level and think it deserves that kind of a place. I'm not one of them. I like Scream, but to me, it was just another kind of fun little easy romp horror movie. And I enjoy it. I didn't really like any of the other ones. So other than the fact that I really like Neve Campbell, she was her stint on House of Cards, by the way, was fantastic. When she popped up on House of Cards, I was like, holy crap, this is Neve Campbell. I really liked her in that. I like Neve Campbell, but I'd be lying to you, and I will never lie to you guys about my honest opinion on things. You may like my opinions on things, you may not like my opinions on things, but you'll always know I'm giving you my honest opinion. I don't really care about Scream all that much. So yeah, I mean, Neve Campbell resigned. No duh. I mean, you're right. Everybody was expecting it. I was probably a foregone conclusion a while ago. But now as to what happens moving forward, I'd be lying to you if I said I cared. I'm just not a Scream guy. And who knows, maybe when I check out this new one, maybe I'll love it and then we'll talk a lot about it. But right now it just doesn't really have my interest. Anyway, thanks for sharing, Casey. All right, next up. KW Garrett writes, I've been binging your show this week as I've fallen behind. However, I can't seem to find your review on Bill and Ted 3. I know you weren't psyched about the new Bill and Ted. I thought it was cute, but a big mess plot-wise, and the daughter copycat characters made me cringe. I didn't do a review of Bill and Ted 3. I didn't really see a need to do a review for it. I did kind of express my thoughts on it. I thought it was not that good, to be honest with you. Now the ending, I'll admit, as somebody who didn't think Bill and Ted 3 was all that good, I gotta say the ending was actually really kind of nice. I found myself like in the last 15 minutes with a big smile on my face. I had a big smile on my face during the last 15 minutes. Although, unfortunately, whenever I think of Bill and Ted 3 now, I'm always going to think of the death of Chadwick Boseman, because I was watching Bill and Ted 3 when I got my first notification on my phone that Chadwick Boseman had passed away. My buddy Soul was the first one to text me about it. And so now I'll always have a little bit of a stain on my recollection of Bill and Ted 3. But that notwithstanding, I like the ending of Bill and Ted 3. It was very cute. Although how people singing a song across timelines stops the end of the universe, I have no idea, but whatever. They didn't really worry about that. I cannot agree with you more about the daughters. I love the actresses, but the choice they made would make the daughters just Bill and Ted clones, not literally clones, but just to make them Bill and Ted clones was really irritating. And it's like, so their mothers had no influence on them? Like, their mother's character didn't rub off on these kids at all. They're just totally their dads. And there was a lot of other stuff too. Honestly, hey, look, a bunch of people liked it, and that's awesome. I always want people to enjoy the movies they're watching, even if it's a movie I don't like. I didn't like Bill and Ted 3. I suspected I wouldn't like Bill and Ted 3. Then again, I suspected I wasn't going to like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and look how that turned out. I love that movie. I suspected I wouldn't like Bill and Ted 3. I didn't think the trailers were ever anything special. Then I watched the movie, and it's like, yeah, this isn't so good. Ending is, even I have to admit the ending was pretty special. It felt nice. It was heartwarming kind of stuff at the end. All right. Anyway, JC is my girlfriend's hall pass writes, I think a good t-shirt idea for your store would be a black t-shirt with a picture of a teal plastic cup, the letters, the John Campea Show on front, and a locker patch on the back of your show's logo, and name like you have in the bottom corner of your screen show. Yeah, I haven't been using the last few weeks, I haven't been using the old teal cup. The reason I've always used, and everybody thinks I kept using the same cup every day. I didn't. I have like 8 of those cups. But the reason I kept using that cup is because it was the only cup big enough that I could fit a full can of my soda in. And I also have this, I can't remember if I told you guys before, I have these special ice cube trays that makes ice cubes like this big, right? Like they make really honking giant ice cubes. And most of my normal cups, I can't fit in a full can of Zevia Cola and one of the ice cubes. It won't fit in. It just makes it overflow. So I would use those big giant teal cups, but I've bought a couple of new giant oversized mugs recently that can hold though. So I've been using these in the last few weeks. Anyway, always good to get suggestions though for the John Campea Show merch shop. By the way, the johncampeashow.com/ wait, why am I freezing on the name of my own thing? Hold on a sec. The John Campea Show / it should be shop. Yes, it is. I don't know why I froze in that for a second. Just since he's giving me an excuse to plug it, johncampeashow.com / shop. And there's different things you can, by the way, you can go in and take a look at all the gear that I use. If you're interested in all the gear that I use, these are just Amazon affiliate links, whatever. But there's also an actual merch store. We got a few more things we're going to be adding in the coming months to the merch store. So you can see there's a bunch of things in there. So I'm always open to ideas for new things to go in there. So thank you for that. All right. Rogue Mammoth writes, Michael Keaton was also in Batman Homecoming and RoboCop 2014. With Flash, he might be the first actor to be in 4 separate comic book properties. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was RoboCop a comic book prior to it being a movie? I'm not saying it's not. I don't know off the top of my head. Was RoboCop actually a comic prior to the motion picture that came out? Or did the comics come after? I'm not sure. If the movie came first, then you can't count RoboCop. I also don't know that I would count Flash as something separate, because I've got somebody, General Ursus is saying RoboCop never had a comic book, because I know there were comics with RoboCop after the movie. I just didn't know if there were before. So yeah, I will say that one doesn't count. I also don't know if I would count Flash, because in Flash, technically speaking, he's playing his same character that he played in the Tim Burton Batman movies, technically speaking. So I don't know if that counts. Maybe it will. Maybe once we see it, we'll count it, but who knows? All right, next up. Preston the Kryptonian writes, "Hey, John, I miss seeing you play Animal Crossing and that other RPG game, World of Warcraft, you were playing. I have this weird thing about enjoying watching people play adventure games, as I used to be a big gamer myself. Anyway, hope you have a great weekend." Yes, I love doing play-in chats. And here's an example, like whether it was playing Animal Crossing or whether it's playing World of Warcraft or whether it's just me playing some online poker. I love doing, look how short my hair is there. I miss my short hair. There's no hairstylist open around where I live right now. I love doing play-in chats, and I haven't done a play-in chat in a while. The main reason I have not done play-in chats in a while, and I will be doing play-in chats again. I actually started playing Fall Guys. Have any of you guys played Fall Guys? It's like a crazy, stupidly simple game, but oddly addictive. If you've not played Fall Guys, I would recommend maybe giving it a shot. It's kind of fun. Anyway, I love playing online poker for doing play-in chats as well and all that kind of stuff. The main reason I have not been able to do play-in chats like at all for the last couple of months is because me and Jonathan Voico, fact checker Jonathan, we got really hunkered down and has really zeroed in on finishing my little documentary project, my little documentary editorial on movie trailers, which I believe we have come up with finally the official name and title for the new documentary. I believe the official name is going to be Movie Trailers, A Love Story. I believe that is the name, the official name. I went on our Patreon Facebook group and I asked our Patreons, guys, what do you think about this or this? And a few suggestions came in and I really liked what a lot of the guys in the Patreon group were saying. And so I believe the official title is going to be Movie Trailers, A Love Story. That's the name, because my documentary is about trailers, but specifically it's about trailers and their relationship with the audience and how that relationship formed and evolved over the different eras as trailers themselves have evolved. I'm very excited about it. I really like it. I mean, it's not going to win any Academy Awards or anything, but I really like my little documentary, and I cannot wait to share with you. But anyway, we have been working very, very hard the last number of months to try to get that capped off and finished off. And we've got the edit is now locked. The movie is now with the lawyers. The lawyers are going through and we're working through clearances and all that kind of stuff right now. So I'm hoping within the next couple of months, we're going to be able to release it. I think sometime in the next couple of weeks, I think I'm going to have some kind of contest with our Patreon group and like select maybe like 15 people, and we'll do a private Zoom screening of my movie. So probably like we'll do some sort of random contest with our Patreon supporters, and like we'll get 15 winners. We'll do a private Zoom call with each other and we'll watch my movie over Zoom as a private screening. So anyway, guys, if you're a Patreon supporter, keep your eyes open for that. We'll do that sometime soon. But that's why you haven't seen me do a lot of play-in chats, but I am excited about getting back to doing play-in chats now that we're starting to wrap up the movie. All right. Next up, James Argento writes, I think this is Wonder Woman's 6th day. I don't think it's the 6th date change. Anyway, originally in 2019, moved due to Lucas changing episode 9 date from May of 2019 to December, then November 2019, June 2020, August 2020, October 2020, and now December. You might be right. You know what? You might be right. It has now taken the New Mutants crown for most date changes. It may have. Now, they're saying, I'm not terribly worried about the Wonder Woman release date change because they're only bumping it a couple of months. It's still going to release, theoretically speaking, this year. It is still theoretically releasing this year. So in 2020, we're going to get our new Wonder Woman movie. I'm very excited for it. Patty Jenkins, to me, can do no wrong. The latest trailer wasn't the best, but I really liked the trailer before that. So I'm excited to see it. But yeah, here's hoping it doesn't get bumped again. Okay, next up, Dave Coca writes, John, we are living in a world where Sonic the Hedgehog and Dolittle are number 3 and number 4, the highest grossing films of 2020 so far. Oh, I know. It's amazing how many memes I've seen of people that have made these graphical memes of, if the Oscars were held today, here would be your nominees for Best Picture. And don't get me wrong, I actually like Sonic. That's another film that I thought was just going to be, I wouldn't enjoy at all. I thought I wasn't going to like Sonic at all. And I ended up, I don't think Sonic was great. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't great, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. I watched it a couple of times. But yeah, obviously should not be, in a normal year, would not be on a top grossing or Best Picture consideration list like we are in 2020. All right, next up, Anthony Campos writes, I live in LA and I booked a hotel in Vegas for this weekend about a week ago because of how highly you spoke of the AMC. Which one did you go to exactly? Gonna go watch Tenet. The movies are like my first home. Popcorn with jalapenos and extra butter is a must. So the specific movie theater, a couple weeks ago, I drove to Las Vegas just so I could go see New Mutants. And I had a great experience at the theater there. They handled their business really well. Like, I felt 3 times safer in that movie theater than I do on a regular basis going to my local grocery store. And my local grocery store does a very good job with all their safety protocols and making me feel safe and secure when I'm in there. But this movie theater, it's the AMC Town Square. That's the specific theater I went to, the AMC Town Square. I cannot praise them enough for how good of a job they did. And hopefully you get a chance to go, and I hope you have a good time. Just don't stay down on the Strip. I'm hearing about like COVID on the Strip in Vegas is like exploding. So I stayed out of the Strip. When I drove down to Vegas to go to see New Mutants, I drove straight to the theater, then drove straight home. It's really weird for me to go to Vegas and not stop off and play some poker, but it was just straight into town, went to the theater, turns right around, came right out. I'm a little paranoid about the COVID stuff. All right, anyway, next up, Saint Campion writes, hi, John and crew. I'm probably one of the few who's already obsessed with Raised by Wolves. I thought I recognized the word Campion. The android mother's name is Lamia. I didn't realize, I thought it was just Mother. Anyway, which is based on mythology. I suspect a wild ride ahead. Also, episode 4's ending is so haunting and realistic in my opinion. I've seen episode 4 because I'm watching Raised by Wolves as well, and I'm enjoying it. I'm not obsessed with it yet, and I don't think it's like amazing yet, but I think it's good. I think it's quite solid, and I'm enjoying watching it. I'm trying to remember the ending of episode 4. Because, they go out, they find the kids. I'm not going to give, can't remember. But I got to say, it's pretty good. If you guys have not started watching this new show, Raised by Wolves, which is a very odd name for it, to be honest with you, maybe it'll become more clear why that's the title later, but you really should take St. Campion's recommendation here and do try checking it out because, like I said, I think it's worth the watch. All right, next up. Stubble McShave writes, I think the C&D requirements will be standards in Hollywood as a publicist company must live up to it in order to get the contract. If every company lives up to C&D, then the filmmakers have completely free hands. Only indie movies have to consider A and B. So this is going back, of course, to what we were talking about the new Hollywood eligibility requirements for Best Picture. That for your movie to be eligible, you only have to meet 2 criteria, right? Only 2 standards you have to meet out of the 4. There's standard A, standard B, standard C, and standard D. Everybody is focused on standard A, which is about how many people of underrepresented groups are in front of the camera, right? How many actors, how many, female leads, how many Asian actors, how many black actors, how many whatever. That's A. And everybody's just focusing on that. Guess what? if you actually read the rules, which most people have not, most people I hear getting, where are the new Oscar rules? I found when I actually engaged some of them, I find 99% of them didn't actually read the rules, because if they did, they would realize a movie doesn't have to meet any requirements for category A. Like I said on the show the other day, you could do a show called Whitey McWhite in the Land of Whites, and you're still perfectly fine, because you don't need to have standard A. All you got to do is have 2 out of the 4 standards. And if you don't meet any of the standards for standard A, you're perfectly fine. The point was this, and by the way, B is not going to be a problem either, because a lot of movies these days have, like, out of all the department heads there are, a lot of them have, like, the head of the costume department are more times than not. Like, when you watch the Oscars, when they go up and you hear the nominees, more times than not, they're women. Right? I mean, and then you get into category C and D, and just about everyone. New York Times did a thing that in the last 10 years, out of the 80 or something movies that have been nominated for Best Picture, there's only 3 of them, only 3 out of the 80 who wouldn't just automatically have qualified already today without doing anything else. Without doing anything else, including the one movie everybody keeps going to is 1917 would have been able to be nominated. Actually, if you read the rules, and the New York Times did a good job on this one as well. If you read the rules, yes, 1917, the movie with all white dudes, even 1917 meets the requirements. It does. So everybody was getting freaked out because they want to get freaked out. They're looking for something to bitch about, and there's simply nothing to complain about. These new rules, really, when you read the rules and understand them, really don't put any burden on studios or filmmakers. And it creates a new environment that says, hey, listen, we know for over a century, Hollywood has had an aggressive agenda of exclusion. Hollywood for over a century, I love Hollywood, I do, but for over a century, it has had a very active and very aggressive agenda of exclusion. In some decades worse than others, but for over a century, there has been an active, in-play agenda of exclusion. This is simply Hollywood saying to itself, we're going to start putting a few safety things in place to make sure that we no longer actively try to exclude people. That's all it is. Now, there are people out there who want to be able to continue to exclude people. There are people out there who simply don't like the gays and don't like the Asians and don't like the blacks, and some who don't like the Italians. But it is what it is. But this is such an easy thing that you would have to, the argument I made on the show the other day was that as a studio or a movie, to not qualify for the new standards, you would have to purposefully try to not qualify. Like, you would literally have to be, I hate women, I hate gays, I hate Asian people, I hate black people, I hate Pakistani people, I hate them all. I don't want any. You would have to literally try to not qualify for these new criteria. You would have to go out of your way to not qualify for this new criteria. So do me a favor. If you ever hear anybody say, well, it's just wrong that unless you have a black lead, you can't be nominated for Best Picture, please correct them. It's like, actually, that's not true at all. That's not what these new rules do. Actually go and read the rules. It's part of the idiotification of America these days. People get all riled up on something they don't actually even know about. You see people getting all riled up over a movie they didn't watch. People getting all riled up over a new set of rules that they didn't actually read. It's just, it's a frustrating thing. It's a frustrating thing. Anyway, K Major writes, orbit for hashtag orbit for Han. For those of you who we're talking about, of course, we were talking about on the show yesterday that Fast and Furious is going into space. And Rob said, I'm fine with that as long as it's Han that gets to go to space. And he suggested hashtag orbit for Han. All right. K Major also writes, Fast 9 ends with Dom getting lost in space and crash lands on a planet where he has adopted the moniker Riddick. Mind blown. You know what? When you look at Riddick, when you look at the Pitch Black movies and you look at Riddick, it's pretty much Dominic Toretto. So, just saying, maybe it is one big shared cinematic universe, K Major. All right, Brownie McBrownie writes, Breaking news. Whitey McWhitey in the World of Whites wins Best Picture at the 2021 Oscars. Love you all. Watch you all religiously since the Venom review. Sorry, Man of Steel review. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I mean, obviously that was something I said the other day. Whitey McWhite in the World of Whites. And it still qualifies under the new rules. I mean, it's just that simple. Anyway, thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right. Orange Hand writes, the unfortunate thing about separating each main topic into its own video is they tend to attract the toxic side of YouTube. Your video about the new Oscar rules is full of idiots who clearly didn't read them and are throwing out the usual buzzwords. Oh, I know. It's funny because, you know, obviously some hate site somewhere, I don't know, I haven't followed the analytics, but some hate site somewhere told people to go and comment bomb the standalone little video I did about the new Oscar rules. And you're right. All you have to do is read the comments for about a minute and you realize, okay, this is somebody who clearly didn't read the rules, and that's somebody who clearly didn't read the rules. And by the way, most of them you can also tell, you can tell by the comments that they didn't actually watch the video. So they're commenting on a video they didn't actually watch. But I fully knew that was going to happen. Like I 100% knew that was going to happen. I was totally prepared for that. I knew that's like, hey, when we put this up as a standalone video, it's going to attract all the bottom feeders, and it's going to get this. And listen, that's not to say it should be important. It's important to clarify that there are people who read the rules and still aren't comfortable with them. There are people who actually took the intelligent step of reading the rules first, making an attempt to understand the rules first, and still end up with a feeling that we don't think these new criteria for Hollywood are appropriate. Full respect for that. Full respect. The problem is 99% of the time, you can just tell by people's comments, oh, well, if you had read the rules, you wouldn't have made that comment because you would know that that comment you just made does not apply to these rules at all. And that's kind of the frustrating thing, not just for my videos, but just for our society in general. It's one of the frustrating things. Anyway, the Wakandan Forever writes, John, I took your advice and watched the Netflix Punisher show. Now you need to pay my therapist bills. The show emotionally wrecked me, but seriously, a great, intense show. What did you think of The Defenders and the other Marvel Netflix shows worth checking out? Yeah, I really liked, not Defenders. I really like Punisher. I both season 1 and season 2. I thought The Punisher was great. I think the Daredevil show is even better. And Punisher plays a very prominent role. I believe it's season 2 of Daredevil. Punisher plays a very prominent role in that as well. I'm not huge on the other Netflix stuff. The Defenders was okay. I did not like Jessica Jones. I wanted to like it. When I read like a one-page synopsis of basically, you know, the abuse and the turmoil that this character went through, I thought, man, there's some rich ground for telling some really cool story. But for whatever reason, the execution didn't work for me, and I just did not enjoy Jessica Jones. Also, Luke Cage. Luke Cage season 1 is a tale of two shows. The first half of season 1 of Luke Cage, like with Cottonmouth, is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Once Cottonmouth is gone, the show really tailed off to me. And I was excited about season 2, but season 2 didn't really work all that well for me either. So the Netflix Marvel shows are a little bit of a mixed bag, but when they hit first half of season 1 of Luke Cage, Daredevil seasons 1 through 3, Punisher season 1 and 2, to some degree The Defenders, it's and Iron Fist. Iron Fist had potential. They did do some pretty interesting things in Iron Fist. But again, probably another swing and a miss there. But yeah, when they did it right, all 3 seasons of Daredevil, 2 seasons of Punisher, a little bit of Defenders, it was really good. So anyway, those are the ones that I would primarily recommend. All right, Willow writes, are you sure the masked muscular guy in the Harley Quinn animated series who sounds like Tom Hardy from The Dark Knight Rises is named Bane? I always thought his name was Bang. I feel like there's an inside joke there that's going completely over. You ever get that feeling like somebody just gave you an inside joke, but it went completely over your head? That's kind of the boat I'm in right now. I feel like that's an inside joke that just went completely over my head. I do love that show, though. Oh my God, I love that show. Okay, James LH writes, "Hey, John, one of two. I previously mentioned watching Sons of Anarchy, now watching The Mayans. Really good. Not as good as Sons of Anarchy. I agree. I enjoy Mayans. I like Mayans. Not as good as Sons of Anarchy, but it's quite good. Will say funny how they did a solo / Calrissian one in a card game scenario with Chucky. That was unexpected, but typical, suited to the character. Two, also the big surprise that I didn't check out the cast of Mayans was seeing arguably the best actor to play a Starship Commander, Adama himself, Edward James Olmos. Never tire of him on screen. Thinking of Battlestar Galactica, I need to send a list of my best TV. Yeah, Edward James Olmos, who like plays one of my all-time favorite television characters in Admiral Adama in Battlestar Galactica, my number one all-time favorite show. It was, again, like for me, a pleasant surprise as well, seeing that he's in Mayans. And he's so good in it. Like, he's so good in Mayans. And it's a good show. Again, not quite as good as Sons of Anarchy, but that's like, to me, one of the greatest television shows ever made. But it's really quite good. I would recommend, if you haven't tried checking it out, jump on board. Particularly, listen, a lot of you may be like me, where you were I was a Sons of Anarchy fan, obviously. And I had no intention of checking out Mayans. I thought, it's going to be a poor man's Sons of Anarchy. And then I can't remember what it was, but after the show had already started, it was already like halfway through season 1. Just on a whim, I thought, whatever. I had the FX app open. I'm like, okay, I'll watch the first episode of Mayans. And I got hooked. I got to tell you, I got hooked. So if you get a chance, do check that out, the show. Okay. Luke1234 writes, as we all know, Gotham was a Batman-less show about Batman. Well, it looks like RoboCop will be getting the same treatment, as Bloody Disgusting and Empire reporting that the prequel series will focus on Dick Jones and his rise in OCP. Oh my. Well, listen, but here's the thing. I ended up not liking Gotham all that much. But there are parts of it that I really did like, particularly at the beginning. See, the idea of looking at this Gotham, which is as iconic of a character in the Batman lore as the Penguin or Riddler are. Gotham is a living, breathing character in the lore of Batman. The idea of looking at Gotham prior to the Batman through the perspective of this policeman, James Gordon, I thought was a great idea. And when that show, particularly in its earlier days, focused on that, Jim Gordon trying to, bring some order to this chaos town run by crime, Gotham, when they were doing that, the show worked. When they try to make it a Batman show, it didn't work. Look, everybody, there's the Penguin. Oh, look, she becomes Poison Ivy. Oh, look, everybody, there's Joker. And ooh, see the kid? Oh, look at him wearing a mask, everybody. Did you know that kid becomes Batman? Whenever they did that, the show lost me, like completely. So the idea of them doing kind of something similar with RoboCop, to me, isn't a bad idea. It's just going to come down to, are they going to make it its own true living, breathing show? Or are they going to just default to being, ooh, guys, remember this from RoboCop? Or like, are they just going to do that? If they focus on just making it its true own living, breathing show, I think there's a lot of potential there. Because that world that they created in RoboCop, that's a world you could tell some pretty cool stories in. So let's see what happens there. All right, Brandon writes, John, how about that new episode of The Boys? Fantastic. The Boys, episode 4, season 2, episode 4. Watched it yesterday. Might be my favorite episode of The Boys so far. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, I'm not going to give too much away, but there's a lot of character work done with Becca and Butcher. We see a completely different kind of and side of Butcher that is totally consistent with everything else we've seen. Huey, his stuff was fantastic. The stuff him and Mother's Milk went off to do, fantastic. The stuff about Stormfront, all the stuff with Homelander. Like every time they go to Homelander, you just think to yourself, what freaky ass shit are they going to do now? And then they just top it. And then they top it every single time. Seriously, that might have been my favorite episode of The Boys so far. I absolutely loved it. All right, next up. Fuck Stormfront writes, remember 2 to 3 months ago, everyone was saying that Tenet and Mulan were tagged as the films to save theaters. Now, with reviews for both mixed, Tenet's modest box office and with all the controversies and failed China release for Mulan, which one will be a success or will both flop? Well, I mean, you got to also remember 3 months ago, we were also a lot more optimistic about what would the state of COVID and everything and the pandemic be by the time we got to the end of August. 3 months ago, we also had a slightly different picture of that. I still contend that $150 million star, I think it's closing on $200 million now. Anyway, for Tenet is not bad, all things considered. Them moving Mulan, which by the way, I still liked Mulan, but if you saw me review it, it's a movie of missed opportunities. It's still a nice little movie. Like I really do believe it's a nice little movie. But it could have been, arguably should have been epic. And as you watch almost every single scene, there was just like, oh, there's a missed opportunity, and there's a missed opportunity, and the whole movie just kind of became defined as the one thing they truly crushed, like, and really got right in Mulan was I felt the bond between Mulan and her dad. I really did. I that was my favorite part of it. But so much else could have been so great with just minor little things they could have done to make that movie a lot better. Anyway, I was always kind of perplexed by why Disney made the move to put it onto Disney Plus. I don't know if they foresaw problems coming with the film. I don't know what everything is. Maybe we'll never know. But again, the reality is in this pandemic, everything is changing so much from week to week, let alone from month to month, let alone what's going to happen 3 months from now. Because I remember in early March, I was like, oh yeah, guys, but July, we'll be past this thing in July. All the movie theaters are going to be open full capacity in July. We'll be right back to normal come July. That's what I thought. How'd that turn out? Not so good. Now, as we got closer and closer, we started to realize, but that's the thing. Things are changing day by day. And so it's hard to say. So I don't know. I mean, look, you can look at a movie like New Mutants, right? Which like made a little over $20 million. You can look at that in a normal year, unbelievable flop. Unbelievable flop. Like you can write songs about how big of a flop that is. But under the current circumstances, you know what? Probably did as well as it was going to do. And it's 20 million more than they would have made if they tried to just put it out on VOD or something. And now in a couple of months, it can come out on VOD and it's made that $20+ million plus it's going to make whatever it's going to make on VOD. And they did the best they could with a bad situation. And the fact is with something like New Mutants, it had been delayed so many times. Anyway, we're talking about Tenet and Mulan. I think you always just have to consider the circumstances that they're in. And I think all things considered, again, other than the very still strange move that they put Mulan on Disney Plus with Tenet, I don't think we're really going to get the full story of Tenet until another 3 or 4 weeks from now, because it does look like, at least on its surface, that all the theaters in Los Angeles and California are going to be opening relatively soon. All the theaters in New York are going to be opening relatively soon. And a lot of other places as well. That's when we'll get a full picture of what this Tenet run was. But yeah, it's just going to have something we're going to have to follow and keep our eyes on and evaluate as we move forward. All right, Kara Black writes, Wonder Woman 84's release date was originally back in late 2019 and was completely finished back then as well. It would have been better had Warner Brothers released the film on its original release date instead of pushing it to June 2020. Well, hindsight, yes. Now we're stuck getting endless delays. Well, yes, Kara, but again, that's hindsight. Like back in October, in September, October of 2019, July of 2019, nobody knew that come February of 2020, we were going to have a global pandemic, right? So we've seen many, many situations where a film does a slight release date bump and change, and it works out great, right? So it's hindsight is 2020 for us to look at it and go, man, they clearly should have just released it. Well, yeah, we know that now. Like now we know that. And I agree, but at the time, the global pandemic was not a part of their reasoning. It wasn't part of the equation. And so they made a perfectly reasonable decision at the time. But yes, in hindsight, just having released this thing in December or November of 2019 obviously would have been a better situation than what we're in right now. 100% you're right about that, Kara. All right, K Major writes, hey, John, it's almost 1 a.m. as I write this, the things that keep me up at night. Do you see the possibility of maybe anthology films for the sequel trilogy? We got Solo and Rogue One for the original trilogy, then Clone Wars movie/show, terrible movie, good show, and Rebels for the prequels. Not that I want this to happen. I rather we move forward, but do you see the opportunity for any side stories from the original sequel trilogy? Maybe. What I could see happen are anthology movies at some point or shows that take place in the time frame of the sequel trilogy. Maybe, but not like the adventures of Poe Dameron or the adventures of Finn or the adventures of Rey. I think those are done. If anybody was going to get their own little show, live action, not a movie, maybe live action show, maybe animated show. If anybody has the possibility of doing that coming out of the sequel trilogy, it's Babu Freak. I mean, you could do something with Babu Freak. I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker, but I liked Babu Freak. That was pretty good. Maybe Babu Freak goes on an adventure with the Porgs. There you go. Just made you $1 billion idea right there. So time frame, sure, because that's our current time frame. The time frame of the sequel trilogy is our current time frame. So I could see movies set in this era, but I don't know about actual, spin-offs or anthologies based on the characters of the new one. So maybe not, but I'm telling you, Babu Freak's an idea. That one's an idea. All right, next up. Let's see. An anonymous viewer writes, hi, John. Nomadland from Chloe Zhao is getting unbelievably great reviews in Toronto. That increases my excitement for the Eternals. What do you think about this? Yeah, it's amazing. I saw a bunch of the feedback coming out about it. The trailer is fantastic. The people are raving about this movie. Obviously, you got assembled yourself a really, really great cast. Yes. Listen, nobody is more important. They're not the only thing that's important, but nobody is more important to how good a movie is going to be than the director. There are a lot of other important pieces too, but nobody's more responsible for how good a movie is going to be or bad it's going to be than the director. And to hear that another project that the director of the Eternals is doing has turned out great and everybody's loving it, that's got to get you more excited for Eternals. That's got to get you more excited for Eternals. So yes, I think that sounds great, and I'm very excited to see Nomadland. I haven't seen it yet myself. I'm stoked to see it. One of the best movie posters, by the way. I love the poster to Nomadland. That's great. Have you guys seen it? Hold on, let me see if I can find it here. Nomadland poster. Let me see if I can find it. I'm finding a couple of different posters. I like the one that's just the... let me see if I can get this sized up. That's just like the license plate. I love this. I don't know. There's something just so cool about it that I totally love it. It tells you something about the nature of the movie. It's just visually really interesting. I love this. I love that little image for Nomadland. But yes, hearing all the rave reviews coming out about that does make me even more excited for Eternals, I got to say. All right. Dark Knight Rises writes, hey, John. Okay. Now have seen the Batman trailer, and it seems like you've done a 180 on Robert Pattinson. Not quite sure what you mean by that. I still think he should have gotten bigger. He did beat the tar out of that guy, but used a lot more effort than Bale would have needed. Well, I don't know what you mean I've done a 180 on Robert Pattinson. I was the first guy. When they announced Robert Pattinson was going to be Batman, I was the first guy online to say, this is a great casting. Because he's turned into, over the years, one of the best actors in the business. I'm not saying he's Daniel Day-Lewis or Chiwetel Ejiofor or Leonardo DiCaprio, but he's great. And I was pissed when I heard him say that, I'm just not going to work out all that much. And by the way, Robert Pattinson did not beat the tar out of that guy. That's the character. Batman did that, and whatever actor was in that suit would have been doing the exact same thing. But I was pissed when I heard that he wasn't taking the physicality of it seriously. But even when I was pissed, I said, no, he's still going to be great. He's going to be great in the role. But when you look at like a Kumail Nanjiani, right? We talked about Kumail Nanjiani the other day. Look how much work, how dedicated he was to getting himself into like peak physical shape for this comic book movie, because he understands if you're playing a superhero, that does more than it would in a normal movie. And I was very disappointed to hear that, but it never changed my mind that Robert Pattinson is a great actor and was going to be great playing Batman. I just didn't like his attitude that he wasn't focusing more on working out. Some people say he was joking. Maybe he was. I don't know, but I didn't like his comments at all. But I never once thought that he's not a great actor. He's fantastic. So no, I have done no 180 at any point on Robert Pattinson, other than go back many years to when Twilight, I thought, well, this Robert Pattinson kid's not that good of an actor. But over the years, as we've seen him in all these indie films that he's done, whether it's The Rover or whether it's High Life or whether it's Good Time or whatever, the dude has just turned into a spectacular actor. And by the way, now he's in Tenet, and he's really good in Tenet as well. So there's that. Anyway. Ethan Holgate writes, hi, John. Oops, we had a bit of a jump. Give me a second so I can get back to where we were. We were at Ethan Holgate. There we are. Ethan Holgate writes, one of two. Hi, John. I was able to see Tenet in an IMAX screen where I live, and obviously it was very loud. I did find it a bit to load over the dialogue for a second, but it picked up after the beginning of the movie. I thought, so I didn't have much of a problem. 2 of 2. Hearing what they were saying only for a bit, but I was able to follow the storyline no problem. I see it in IMAX, so I just assumed the audio would be loud for a small bit. I went to see it again in a regular cinema, and I had no problems. Yeah, listen, that's the thing about audio, but not only audio, but picture quality too. The theater you watch, the specific theater you watch something in will play a part. So yesterday, when I saw Tenet, I saw it in a Dolby Prime cinema that has the Dolby Atmos in it and all that kind of stuff. I have no doubt if I just go to a regular little cinema, it may sound different. Maybe better, maybe worse, I don't know, but I'm sure it'll be a little bit of a different experience. But anyway, I'm glad you had the experience you had, particularly, and I'm not surprised to hear you say you saw it in another cinema and it was a lot easier for you to go through it. Maybe when I see it next, I'll skip the Dolby Prime theater. Maybe I'll just go into a regular theater without the Dolby Atmos and see if that makes any kind of a difference. So thanks for giving me the heads up on that, Ethan. I appreciate that. All right. The Only Drewski 13 writes, hey, John, can I just say that The Boys is doing a great job at bringing a brilliant artist, Billy Joel, to a new generation that may not have appreciated the impact he has had socially, politically, and obviously musically. With the casual mentions in season 1 in the poster, now in season 2, we actually see OG music videos, and they used his music in the marketing, and we didn't start the fire. One of my favorite workout songs, by the way. Just wow. Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Yeah, listen, and that is a common thing we're seeing in a lot of different stuff, like going back for years, where like a particular character will have a particular obsession with a particular musician. And then that kind of becomes a key thing, right? Archer, even the animated show Archer, which, oh my God, if you guys don't watch Archer, that may be the funniest animated show I've ever seen, ever. But like his obsession with Kenny Loggins, or even if you go to I Love You Man, go back to I Love You Man, Paul Rudd, he had this obsession with Rush. The two main, Jason Segel and Paul Rudd, have this obsession with Rush. So Rush plays a primary thing in it. And that's done a lot. It's actually done in a lot of TV shows, but it's always effective. And it just gives you another layer of relatability with a character you see. Because if you like Billy Joel, and you got a character who's in a show or a movie who's like really all about Billy Joel, that just gives you another kind of bridge to that character. And yes, the We Didn't Start the Fire scene in the car in The Boys was really fun. That was a really, really fun scene. All right, let's see. Next up, Cameron Davidson writes, Hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much. Just curious, are you a fan of the original Planet of the Apes movies? I'm watching them at the moment and really like them. Also, have you ever seen King Solomon's Mine 1985? It's basically canon's Indiana Jones. It's so much fun. I enjoyed the original ones. I really love the original Planet of the Apes. Not as big on a lot of the other they started getting a little bit wonky with with the original run of the Planet of the Apes movies. But yes, King Solomon's Mines. Here's an interesting thing about it. That was played by, it's the same, Richard Chamberlain, I believe, was the actor who played Alan Quatermain, was the name of the character. Now, Alan Quatermain is a popular fictitious adventurer. As a matter of fact, one of the very first, if not the very first major motion picture that my company worked on when I was working in visual effects, I think it might have been the very, very first major motion picture that we got a contract for, was for the Sean Connery movie, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Terrible movie, but we got to work on it. And Sean Connery plays Alan Quatermain, the same character from 1985 Solomon Mines. And yes, and by the way, Richard Chamberlain, remember every once in a while people will ask about, what do you think is a novel that should be turned into a movie today? I always go to the James Clavell novel Shogun. And they did do a miniseries of Shogun in the 80s starring Richard Chamberlain, Alan Quatermain himself. So listen, it's not great, but it's fun. It's exactly what you would think from like a mid-80s kind of rompy adventure little movie. I mean, it's nowhere near the league of obviously Indiana Jones, but it's a fun little thing, Cameron. So I'm glad you brought that up. All right. The Halo Brony writes, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I will tell you all, Paul Walker, and I will tell you all about it when I see you again. We have come a long way without you, my friend, and I will tell you all about it when I see you again. Happy birthday, Paul Walker. Yeah, I thought I heard it was his birthday. I didn't realize that it actually was, but I thought I heard somebody say it was Paul Walker's birthday. Man, listen, I'll tell you, we talked recently about the passing of Chadwick Boseman and how I'll always remember where I was. I still remember exactly where I was when I heard about the passing of Heath Ledger. I was at Lionsgate. I was at their head offices. They have a little private screening room in there. And me and a few other journalists were there watching a screener for a bank heist movie with Jason Statham. And obviously all of us had our phones turned off. And then the theater lets out into this lobby of Lionsgate's offices. And all of us walk out, and I wasn't the first one to walk out. So when I walked out of the theater, I already saw about 7 or 8 of the journalists like looking stunned, all looking at their phones. I'm like, what happened? And I pull up my phone and it's blown up with messages and everything that Heath Ledger had passed away. Chadwick Boseman, I'll always remember, I was watching Bill and Ted 3. Paul Walker, I'll never forget where I was either. I was actually in Las Vegas. I was at a poker table. And I actually think it might have been the same day. Hold on a second. This might have actually been the day. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Now that's not, a news flash to hear that I was in Vegas playing poker. Yes, that happens quite a bit, particularly, when there's not a pandemic going on. But I remember I was there playing poker and the news came across that Paul Walker had died in a car accident. And you got to understand, at first, I thought it was a joke. Bad joke, guys. Well, he died in a fast car because he's in Fast and the Furious, right? I thought it was a bad joke at first. And I believe it was the same day that this picture was taken. I think I was at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. And that's Jason Alexander. I was playing poker with Jason Alexander at the time. And I believe that was the exact same day that we got the news came in and stuff like that. And I'll just remember, and I was the first one at the table that I was at to see the news on my phone. And I looked up and I just said to everybody at the table, and these are all strangers, but I said, you guys know Paul Walker from Fast and Furious? He just died in a car accident. And everybody was like stunned. And I'll I'll never forget where I was. I'll never forget where I was the day that happened. All right. Frankie G writes, over on the Campea Podcast Facebook page, that's for our Patreon supporters, informal survey gives unanimous thumbs up for the Hilary Swank Away on Netflix. Listen, Ann and I, we were going through Netflix because we were going to watch Kim's Convenience, and we came across Away and we watched like the full preview of it. I hadn't watched the preview for it yet. And I was like, this looks really good. Honestly, it's not one that's been on my radar really all that much, although I do love Hilary Swank. But it hasn't really been on, I mean, I heard about it, but I didn't really have it on my radar. Then I saw that preview for it, and I'm like, this looks really damn good. So yeah, at some point I got to give it a shot. I got a few other shows I need to get through first, but I have added Away to my must-watch list. So I'm going to have to get on that at some point. Thanks for sharing that, Frankie. All right, next up. Uptown Geek writes, yo, Rocky 4 is getting a director's cut. I heard about that. Does Rocky 4 really need a director's cut? Anyway, and Sly is taking out the robot. It's one of my favorite Rocky movies. I wonder what will be added. It definitely had a shorter running time compared to the others. This has me hoping for a Rocky 5 director's cut. Correct. I thought the robot was in Rocky 3. Was the robot also in Rocky 4? I love Rocky 4. I can't remember. Was it in Rocky 4? Anyway, I'm not going to lie to you. I love Sylvester Stallone. I love his movies, even the bad ones. I have zero interest in this. This whole, no, I got to do a director's cut of everything. I have zero interest. Rocky 4 is great. Rocky 3 is great. Rocky 2 is great. Rocky 1 is great. Rocky 6, Rocky Balboa, is great. The Creed movies are great. Notice we left out number 5. Yeah, I'll leave out number 5. Could have been great. Rocky 5 with Tommy Gunn could have been great. Not so great. Anyway, if you want to do a director's cut of any of the Rocky films, do a director's cut of Rocky 5. Do a director's cut of that. That's the one that needs it. I'll be quite frank with you. Even though I love Stallone, I have zero interest in this director's cut of Rocky that he wants to do. Absolutely zero interest at all. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, New Mutants total box office until today is about 21 million. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. With an $80 million budget. That's a disaster, even during these circumstances. Not really. How do you see this? Do you think it will affect Disney's approach for X-Men? Oh, no, not at all. Listen, they knew when they put out and they decided to say, look, enough's enough. This is a movie that has gone through way too much drama. It's time just to put it in theaters, even if it's under terrible circumstances. And they did. And at least it made them $20 million. But there are two things. Number one, is that a disaster by current circumstances? No, it's not. No. It was the first movie that really went out there to do it. It was really the first name-recognized movie to go out there and do it when so many theaters were still closed and we had all these capacity and tons of people there are still today, a lot of people don't even realize that movie theaters are open. There are nobody who watches shows like mine, we all know that a bunch of the theaters are open, but a lot of people still don't know or realize that there are movie theaters that are open. And like movies like Tenet right now, that's getting like over 200 million. Well, yeah, but they're kind of reaping some of the benefit of New Mutants being the first penguin to jump into the water and kind of get the gears moving again and all that kind of stuff. So no, I don't think under the current circumstances, it's not the worst thing in the world that it made 20 something million dollars. To the second part of your question, will this change how Disney looks at the X-Men franchise? Not at all. Not in the least. Look, they understand. Disney knows you cannot judge anything by what's happening right now. We are living in extraordinary circumstances right now. Unprecedented circumstances right now. Nothing that happens right now should be considered as maybe being a normal thing when we're not living in a pandemic. None of the good stuff, none of the bad stuff. Nothing great or terrible that's happening right now is something that you can take and think applies to once the pandemic's over. It's a totally different ballgame. So no, Disney never was going to look like, listen, honestly, this movie could have come out and New Mutants could have joined the $1 billion club it still wouldn't have changed a single thing about how Disney's approaching what Kevin Feige's approach to X-Men is going to be. Wouldn't have changed it. It could have come out and made $1 million, and it wasn't going to change. Kevin Feige is going to develop his plan, and he knows that his X-Men are completely separate from what the Fox era of X-Men was going to be. So no, I don't believe in any way, shape, or form, positive or negative, does anything that happens to any movie during the pandemic going to affect their plans for the future of that franchise, particularly with the circumstances of the X-Men. So no, I don't think it's going to change his plans whatsoever. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, I showed the Dune trailer to my mother, who knows nothing about it. Her response? It was kind of all over the place, but I really want to read the book now. Yeah, listen, I think if anything, maybe it'll drive. Look, if that's the worst thing that happens, if the worst thing that happens is a lot of people are driven to go read the book for the first time, big win. More people should read Dune. It's not an easy read. I'm not going to pretend it's an easy read. It's one of the headier sci-fi novels ever done, but hopefully more people read it. Again, I am dying to see this movie. I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. I still don't think that first trailer was a big win. I don't think the first trailer was a big win. Like, at all. I thought for people who are inside baseball, I think it excited a bunch of us, but we're not the ones that need to go see this movie to make sure the same fate that happened to Blade Runner 2049 doesn't happen to Dune as well. Like, so many people who know Dune, or so who know Blade Runner and are totally into that idea, so excited about Blade Runner, but guess what? They forgot that nobody else was. And the trailers did nothing to reach people who weren't the core fan base. And what happened? Blade Runner 2049 was a great movie, but it flopped and it lost them a lot of money. I don't want to see the same thing happen to Dune. Denis Villeneuve should be a billion-dollar director. I mean, he's just too good, and his movies are too good. So I really hope they are able to adjust their marketing campaigns. I don't think it was a great trailer. I really don't. I don't think it did a lot to motivate enough people that aren't already planning on seeing Dune. I think that trailer excited a lot of people who were already planning on seeing Dune, but I don't know that it did a big job. And we did a poll on the show, and we had like 7,000 respondents, and I don't even think 60 people, not 60 people. I don't even think 60% of people said the trailer made them more excited for the movie. That's not great. It's not bad. It's not bad. But I don't even think the number of people who responded, this trailer made me more excited for the movie, I don't think it cracked 60%. So that's a little concerning. So I think they need to change directions a little bit with their marketing, but we'll see what happens. We're still a couple of months away. All right. But I'm glad your mother wants to go read the book, Ryan. All right. The Sock writes, someone made a side-by-side comparison of images from Blade Runner 2049 in the current day San Francisco, and they look eerily similar. I'll tell you what, guys, I went outside the other day. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell the difference. Hold on a second here, because I don't think my camera accurately captured the color properly. I'm not sure if it did or not, but let me bring this up. I went outside the other day and I took a picture of the sky. If you're thinking, wow, that looks really orange, I think it even looked more orange in real life. Like, it looked positively apocalyptic. So I live in the San Fernando Valley in Burbank, right by Los Angeles. And yeah, I mean, this grayish, orangish kind of overhang, and this is in the middle of the day. It's for those of you who don't live in California, it's kind of freaky. It kind of looks like I was living on Arrakis. Speaking of Dune, it looks like what I would imagine the sky of Arrakis might look like. But anyway, yeah, but I saw a bunch of those pictures, Sock, and yeah, they're shocking. They're absolutely shocking. All right, Chris Warden writes, one of two. Over the years, Disney has produced many mature and R-rated films under such studio banners as Touchstone, Miramax, Hollywood Pictures, and Buena Vista. Yes, they have. Do you think one, Disney gets the streaming rights back? I think you mean gets the streaming rights back. Gets the streaming rights back to those titles. It would make sense for them to put them on Hulu. Has that kind of content would not fit on Disney Plus. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the big reasons why Disney made sure not only did they acquire Fox's rights to Hulu, they went out and bought out like Comcast was also a shareholder in Hulu. They bought them out too. Now Disney's in complete control of Hulu. One of the big reasons for that was so that they had a dual-pronged online streaming strategy. The stuff that's appropriate for Disney Plus and everything else that they can put over on Hulu. Right now, actually, Hulu is my favorite streaming platform, oddly enough. But that is absolutely, Chris, 100% you're right about that. That is definitely a part of their strategy. So like if they decide to put like, they're going to be some edgier stuff they will put over on Hulu. I think we'll be surprised that there's going to be some stuff that we maybe would have thought they'd put on Hulu that they do end up putting on Disney Plus. But for a lot of that other content, I think a lot of that is destined to go over to Hulu. All right. Anthony Garola writes, "Hey, John. Not sure if you've noticed, but there's been major outrage over Netflix's new film Cuties. I was wondering if you saw this as more creative expression, or has this film gone too far? Is there ever a line that needs to be drawn? Thanks." Yeah, here's the thing. This thing about Cuties is incredibly frustrating to me. First of all, it needs to be said, I have not seen Cuties. I haven't seen it. I never planned on seeing it because it is a Netflix original, which there are some that are really good, but a lot of them aren't. But it also kind of looks like a European art house film. And generally speaking, those aren't my cup of tea. Those aren't my cup of tea. But John, you love Amelie. Yeah, I do. And that is kind of one of those, but that's an exception, I suppose. But those European art house kind of films aren't generally my cup of tea, so I don't run out to watch a lot of them. And Netflix puts up a lot of those types of films. So I hadn't seen it. I had never planned on seeing it. So being a semi-intelligent human being, knowing that I have not seen the film, I can neither attack it nor can I defend it. Can we be clear about that? Since I have not seen the film, I'm intelligent enough to know that since I haven't seen it, I don't get a vote on whether or not it's totally appropriate and great and artistic, or totally creepiest of the creep. I'm intelligent enough to know that I shouldn't have an opinion because I haven't seen it. So I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's the greatest thing ever. I don't know if it's the worst thing ever. I simply don't know. What is frustrating to me, though, looking at our culture and society, that much like the Oscar rules thing, the loudest people complaining about Cuties are people who have not seen it. They're complaining based on what other people have told them. They're basing what they're saying on a clip maybe that they saw that was taken without any context, and context is everything. I'm just saying that the people I see who are getting most upset about it are the people who actually haven't seen the movie. And that's frustrating. Now, again, I can't defend the movie because I haven't seen it. For all I know, it is the biggest piece of vile garbage ever made. Maybe it is, but I don't know. I don't know because I haven't seen it. I do know this. The filmmaker, who is a woman, she said that the film is basically, the way she described it was this, that the movie Cuties is autobiographical of her life. That was her life. And she says that the movie is basically a cautionary tale about the dangers of the over-sexualization and the messages our media sends to kids. Because what do little girls see? I heard her talking about this. Little girls see that the popular, successful women are the one that are really all over-sexualized. That's the message being sent. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a woman using her sexuality as power. I'm not suggesting that at all. But what this director said is this was my experience growing up. This was my experience growing up. And it isn't healthy. And I believe this movie is a cautionary tale against this sort of thing. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know if she pulled it off or not. Or I don't know if it comes across as the creepiest of the creep, vulgar garbage. I just don't know. It's just interesting to me to see that most people who are the loudest against it are those who haven't seen it. And I just find it interesting that those who seem to be defending it are people who have seen the movie. Like I'm reading some people who've seen it said, actually, I saw it and it's actually very stirring. It is very much a cautionary tale. It's meant to arouse in us the idea that we need to be aware that this is the message we're sending to kids and blah, 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 blah. Now, I haven't seen it. I can't back up that review because I haven't seen it. So I can't defend it, but I can't attack it either. I do know this, the marketing approach that Netflix started with, which was because if you look at the original poster, it's a French film. If you look at the original poster for Cuties in France, it's a totally innocent, 5 little girls on a bridge or whatever, and just in a town or whatever. It's a very innocent poster. But then you look at the market. I don't know what the hell Netflix marketing was thinking, because Netflix puts out this poster, and the poster, I don't mind if there's a scene that does that to try to make a point in context, but on the poster, they have these little girls like in these like sexually expressive poses. I mean, that was just idiotic. There's no getting around that. I can comment on that because I saw the poster. So I can comment and say the poster was absolutely idiotic. That much I can comment on because I saw the poster. But the problem is, I know that the poster may not actually be reflective of the movie, but I just don't know whether it is or not because I haven't seen it. I know people love to feel outraged. Everybody loves outrage. I don't care who you are, men, women, left, right, whatever. People love feeling outraged. We get this sense of moral superiority. I'm including myself in this. This is one of our not so great human characteristics. And we're all guilty of it. All of us, me included. All of us. But we feel morally self-righteous when we get to be morally outraged at something else. Like when we get to be outraged about something, it makes us feel morally superior. I do it. We all do it. It's a terrible trait that we have. But whenever I see people getting outraged, whether it's Oscar rules that people didn't bother to read, or whether it's outrage over a movie that they themselves are only taking other people's word for it and didn't actually see themselves, it's a concerning trait. It's a concerning trait that I think we as human beings have. So, this cutie things, the bottom line is for me, I haven't seen the movie, so I have no opinion. I can't defend it. I can't attack it. I haven't seen it. I'd be curious to hear from some of you guys, if you actually saw the movie, what do you think? Does it come across as the creepiest of creep crease vulgar garbage like that poster was? That poster was terrible. Or does it come across as an artistic look at the pressures young girls feel as told through the eyes of a female director who said she went through that and she's basically telling her story? But does it actually come across that way? I don't know. If you guys have seen it, please tell me, because I would love to know your thoughts on it if you've seen it. All right, next up. The Wakandan Forever writes, I've been catching up on the Marvel Netflix show, and when I searched for Luke Cage, a little pop-up banner came up. Turns out Netflix has a Black Lives Matter collection. It's a mix of films, documentaries, and TV shows. It looks really interesting. Yeah, I noticed that myself on Netflix, that they did that. And I thought that was a really cool idea. Just look, these streaming services are always, in the best of times, looking for cool ways to curate content, right? And that's a very dominant thing right now. So for them to curate in that way, I thought that was a really nice idea. All right, David writes, hey, John, regarding the Best Picture eligibility rule changes, I'm a little confused because Grace Randolph said 1917 wouldn't qualify for Best Picture. It would have. She's incorrect. But remember, I haven't seen what Grace said about it. If you're only talking about standard A, remember there's standard A, B, C, and D, and you only got to meet 2 of them. Would 1917 have gotten the check mark for standard A? No, it wouldn't have. But it doesn't need to. That's the thing. It doesn't need to qualify for standard A. The actors in front of the camera. Again, the movie could have been Whitey McWhite in the Land of Whites, and you can still qualify. I mean, everything from the director, Sam Mendes, whose father is from, is Trinidadian, all the way down to who his costume designer was and blah, blah, blah. Then you just go through who was the publicist? The New York Times did a thing on this, and they specifically mentioned 1917. 1917 would have qualified. Now, again, I haven't seen Grace's comments on it, but I suspect what Grace may have been talking about is category A. And would 1917 have qualified under the stipulations of standard A? No, wouldn't have gotten the checkbox for standard A. But it only needs 2 checks out of the 4 standards, and C and D are like automatic gimmies, and I think they would have gotten it for I think they would have checked off 3 of the boxes. If I remember the article right, I think 1917 would have checked off 3 of the boxes, and it only needs to check off 2, so it would have been fine. All right. Chocolate Wizard writes, saw Tenet, what a movie, definitely a big contender for the film not in the... I see what you're saying. Saw Tenet, what a movie, definitely a big contender for the film not in the English language at next year's Oscars. I see, because you couldn't understand a damn thing they were saying. Well, that's funny. Okay, that's probably my favorite message of the day so far. Well said, Chocolate Wizard. All right, Ben Rayner writes, Doom Patrol renewed. Doom Patrol renewed for season 3. Bring on more Stone and Borg. I had not heard that it officially got the re-up for season 3. I've not heard that yet. I'm not surprised though. I suspected it was going to get renewed for season 3, but I had not heard any sort of official word that it officially got it yet. But if you're saying the official word has come out, awesome news. I loved season 2. I thought season 2 was great. Listen, there are 3 superhero type shows going right now. That is just, I'm so grateful to be in this era, because right now we have Doom Patrol, The Boys, and Umbrella Academy. The 3 best superhero shows on TV. And none of them, other than maybe Cyborg being one of the characters in Doom Patrol, none of them are about any of the big popular superheroes. And all 3 of these shows are radically different from each other. The Boys is radically different from Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol is radically different from Umbrella Academy. Umbrella Academy is radically different from The Boys. And it's just like 3 of the best shows on TV. It's a great era to be in, so that's good news hearing that it got renewed. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, let's see. Hello from France. I was watching the trailer for Dune, and I have not even realized that the grandmother who is speaking in half of the trailer is Charlotte Rampling. Yeah, we talked about when she got cast. We talk about that in the show. I am ashamed and proud as a Frenchman. Love your show. Thanks for doing it. There's so much here, but I remember Rob, when we did the show initially, let me see if I can pull something up here. When we did the show, that... after they announced that she was going to be in the movie, I remember Rob got a stiffy. He was so excited for that. She is incredible. She's really good. Maybe not so good in Assassin's Creed, mind you, but yeah, Rob loves her, particularly for a lot of her older work. So I remember when they announced that she was cast as that character, he was just absolutely beside himself, and he went on and on and on about that. So he was really excited about it. So you are not the only one to be excited about that, my friend. You're in good company with Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. All right, J Meister 25 writes, did you see people blaming the Obamas for greenlighting Cuties on Netflix? They had nothing to do with the production. Hashtag do your research. Again, just another thing that somebody will say that, and then it'll get passed on and on and on. People don't actually read for themselves. They believe something they heard from somebody else. They don't actually research it and look into it. It's just ridiculous. All right. Marley V writes, hey, John, I just saw that you recently viewed Tenet. It was the most frustrating film I've seen in recent memory. I saw it on an IMAX screen, and I couldn't hear most of the dialogue, and the story seemed too complex just to be complex. Disappointed. Now, look, I will say this, Marley. Clearly, the film is very complex. It is. Bill and Ted 4. It is very, very complex. My suspicion is that if we actually were able to clearly hear and understand what the characters were saying in the scenes that we were meant to clearly hear and understand. Because like I said, I think there are a couple of scenes where we as the audience are not meant to understand what's being spoken. I think there's a narrative purpose for that. But then there's a whole chunk of the movie as well where we are supposed to be able to clearly hear and understand what's going on, and we're not able to make it out. When you have, the more complex your movie is, the more vital it becomes that as you're giving away exposition and narrative through dialogue, the bigger it is that we be able to properly hear and understand it. Because the more complex your story is, it exponentially hurts our ability to follow along if we can't hear what the characters are saying to be able to follow along. And I found that there were points in the movie, like, look, I overall got the basic gimmick of the basic idea of what Tenet was doing. I could tell there was a fantastic movie in front of me, but it became increasingly frustrating as there were scenes where I was clearly supposed to be able to hear what was going on, and I couldn't, and therefore didn't fully understand what was happening in that particular scene or in the scene to follow. The more complex your story, the more imperative it is that we able to be fully on board with what's going on with the dialogue. I get the feeling that the movie is very complex, but not too complex that we can't, if we're paying very close attention, that we can't follow along, as long as we're able to hear what the dialogue is. And that became a point of frustration for me. And I heard other people talking about it, and I'll be honest with you, I'm just gonna be honest, full up honesty here. Christopher Nolan has a history sometimes of having poor audio mixes, but honestly, even though so many of you guys told me that you had a real problem understanding dialogue in a lot of it, I went in expecting it to maybe be a little muffled here and there, but I'd probably understand it all. And even I had a problem at points in the movie, and that becomes more problematic the more complex stories. So I don't think Nolan made it complex just to be complex. I think he told a very intricate, very bombastically audacious and ambitious story. But it just dropped the ball in a few places that maybe he got a little ahead of himself at times, but also not being able to hear the dialogue. And I think that became a bigger thing, Marley. Anyway, I am hoping upon a second viewing, maybe I'll be in a theater where they tweak the audio a bit. Maybe I'll hear it a little bit more, and who knows, we'll have to see. All right. Spicy Mayo writes, hello from San Diego. I love San Diego. I saw Tenet and liked it, but got confused. Had to look up explanations. I liked how Inception explained its plot and sequences in the first half. Tenet expects you to follow through. I guess I just have to feel it, not understand it. No, the problem isn't you, Spice. You need to be able to understand it, and that's the filmmaker's responsibility. It is the filmmaker's responsibility to make sure to a reasonable degree that the audience is able to follow along with the story that they're telling. That is the filmmaker's responsibility. You don't have to hold the audience by the hand like a little child and feed them their pablum. Here comes the airplane, open up. They don't have to do that, but at least to a reasonable degree, it is the responsibility of the filmmaker to make sure we as the audience can come along and follow along. And you're right, when you get to a movie like Inception, which I would argue is no less complex than Tenet is, I don't think Tenet's any more complex than Inception was. The difference is our perception of the complexity, because in Inception, Christopher Nolan did a really good job of laying out clearly, here are the rules that we're kind of living in this Inception world. And so we as the audience, even though it was a very complex and ambitious kind of story, our perception of the complexity was a lot more manageable because we were able to easily come along. Christopher Nolan, as the filmmaker, made it his priority to make sure that he told the story in such a way that we were able to follow along with the audience. And I don't think Tenet's any more complex than Inception was. It's just that in Inception, he did a better job with the audio mix and making sure we heard the characters and giving the proper dialogue that we were able to follow along a little bit more easily. So again, if I watch this movie with subtitles, I have a feeling a lot of us who maybe feel like the story is overly complex, I bet if subtitles were on, we would have said, yes, it's a complex movie, but it's not super unreasonably complex. if we just know what's being said, we'll probably do a lot better. Anyway, thanks for that, man. All right, final question of the day on this Saturday. We've got Iron Man Mark 2020 that writes, I cannot wait for Mandalorian Season 2 on October 30th. Dude, me too. I am so excited for it because I loved Season 1, but it's just great. You gotta understand, for me as a Star Wars fan, I need a palate cleanser after Rise of Skywalker. Like I did an entire video on this, but I was very disappointed with Rise of Skywalker. And all of it comes down to the lack of a plan. I think that's the culprit behind every single problem I had with Rise of Skywalker. I liked The Last Jedi, but I had issues with it. I love The Force Awakens. Love The Force Awakens. Love Rogue One. I really enjoyed Solo, on and on and on. But after Rise of Skywalker, I really need a good palate cleanser. I need me a palate cleanser. And I'm thinking Mandalorian Season 2, man. I think Mandalorian Season 2 is going to be that palate cleanser. And I'm with you, dude. I cannot wait. All right, guys. That will do it for this weekend's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much, guys, for spending some of your time here with us today. And a special thank you to you guys who sent in those live comments and questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here, thank you guys very, very much for that. Don't forget, guys, the John Campea Show returns on Monday. If you got big major news or topics you think we should make a main topic on the John Campea Show on Monday, make sure you go to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, you'll see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. Remember, it's totally free. Hit submit, and then you might just see your submission featured as a main topic on the John Campea Show on Monday. But if you've got a comment or question that you want to make sure gets on the show, go ahead and use the tip link in the top of the description of this video, or just go to streamelements.com/movieblog/TV/tip. Use that. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. All right, guys. That does it for me for today's installment of the show. Thank you so much for being here. Remember to do the 4 important things, guys. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.